1:15. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Catherine Pereira, read by Sound Dithavam. Development projects worth over 284 billion rupees are being implemented in the country. The government says there is no change in the suspension of the import of vehicles. Compensation will be given to the fishermen who were affected due to the burnt Express Pearl vessel. More than 2.3 million people have been vaccinated. In world news, NATO warns of military challenge posed by China. Minister Kelly Rambukwala says that the government is able to implement development projects at a cost of 284 billion rupees while expending more than 300 billion rupees for the COVID eradication program. He made this comment at a cabinet meeting held in Colombo today. These projects are being implemented under 41 ministries. The minister also stated the Finance Minister, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, has submitted a report in this regard to the cabinet. Water facilities for villagers, 100,000 kilometres of road development and electricity projects were also implemented in the country. The minister has also emphasised that there is no change in the suspension of the import of vehicles. The loan documents in this regard have also been cancelled. The District Secretary of Gampaha, Sunil Jalat, says the paying of compensation for the affected fishermen affected by the burning Express Pearl vessel at the Colombo port will begin today. Compensation will be given to 9,883 fisher families. Accordingly, 5,000 rupees will be given to the fisher families living in Negombo, Wattala, Jayala and the Katana Divisional Secretariat divisions. He also stated that 50 million rupees has been allocated for this purpose. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The chairman of the Sri Lanka Medical Council, Specialist Dr. Padma Gunaratna, says that the government's decision to implement travel restrictions is very optimistic. But she also stated it is suspected that the result cannot be achieved due to the behaviour of some people. She requested the people to focus on obtaining the vaccines. The people's support is needed to eradicate the COVID pandemic. She also stated that the Delta variant spreading in India, America and Britain is very dangerous. The necessary measures should be taken to prevent the spread of this virus in the country. Secretary to the Education Ministry, Professor Kapila Pereira, says that providing vaccines to the school children will be considered. However, a final decision in this regard has not yet been taken. A COVID vaccination program has still not been initiated for the children of Asian countries as well. Meanwhile, special vaccination programs will be implemented for the feeble senior citizens staying at home. Health Services Director General Asela Gunaratna said that the necessary transport facilities will also be provided to take them to the nearest vaccination centres. Zonal health directors, district health services directors and health medical officials have been briefed in this regard. That's local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The Ministry of Health says COVID vaccinations have been given to more than 2.3 million individuals in the country. 2 doses of the vaccines have been given to more than 613,000 people. The government has spent 70 million rupees for the import of COVID eradication vaccines, and that came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, the residents in the Galle district complain that the contractors who are engaged in rural road development activities are not carrying out the construction work in a proper way. Laying of carpet and concrete is also not carried out in a standard way. The residents pointed out that it is important to undertake road development work in a proper manner without wasting public funds. This is for the attention of the chairman of the Road Development Authority of the Southern Province and came to you in Watchlight. On to a bulletin of world news. In the headlines, NATO warns of military challenge posed by China. Non-confidence motion submitted against the Japanese Prime Minister. The US President says he will lay down red lines to Putin. NATO leaders meeting for a summit in Brussels have warned of the military threat posed by China, saying its behaviour is a systematic challenge. China, they said, was rapidly expanding its nuclear arsenal, was opaque about its military modernization and was cooperating militarily with Russia. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg warned China was coming closer to NATO in military and technological terms, but he stressed the alliance did not want a new Cold War with China. NATO is a powerful political and military alliance between 30 European and North American countries. Japanese opposition parties in the lower house of the Diet submitted a non-confidence motion this morning against Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide's cabinet. The leaders of 4 opposition parties, including the Constitutional Democratic Party, agreed yesterday to introduce the motion. The move came after the opposition's request for a 3-month extension to the current Diet session has been rejected by Suga's government and governing parties. The non-confidence motion says Suga's cabinet failed to adequately respond to the coronavirus pandemic and forced many people into financial difficulties. US President Joe Biden has indicated that he will seek possible areas of cooperation when he meets with Russian President Vladimir Putin, but will lay red lines for what is not acceptable. Biden spoke at a news conference after yesterday's NATO summit in Brussels. He is due to meet Putin in Geneva tomorrow. Biden called the Russian president bright, tough and a worthy adversary. He also said he will make clear to Putin that there are areas where the 2 countries can cooperate if he chooses. Back to the headlines of the world news. NATO warns of military challenge posed by China. Non-confidence motion submitted against the Japanese Prime Minister. And the US President says he will lay down red lines to Putin. On to development news. 8 rural playgrounds in the Mathura district will be developed with an expenditure of 22 million rupees. The objective of this move is to provide required facilities for the rural players. The project will be initiated under the patronage of Minister Nama Rajapaksa. Financial assistance will also be provided under 3 stages to develop infrastructure facilities at the playgrounds. That came to you in development news. We move on to sports news. Sri Lankan sprinter Yupun Abekon and 3,000 metres steeplechase athlete Nilani Ratnayaka are very close to qualifying for the Tokyo Olympic Games, according to the National Athletics coach YK Kularatne. Abekun, who finished in 4th place at the recent Diamond League meet in Rome, has already reached the 50th position in the world rankings and is a front-runner for the Olympics. Football Sri Lanka has received to present a reward of 50,000 rupees each to the Sri Lanka football squad, which participated at the FIFA World Cup qualifiers in South Korea recently. Sri Lanka put up a fine performance even though they lost both matches against Lebanon 3-2 and South Korea 5-0. The FSL decided to reward the players and the rest of the Sri Lankan contingent with the approval of the executive committee. That's sports news, business news to follow.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
The CSE witnessed another landmark as reported earnings crossed the 100 billion rupee mark for the first time in the history of the CSE during the first quarter of the calendar year 2021. The growth is a monumental 189% year-on-year growth compared to the corresponding quarter the previous year. That's business news. We look at economic news next.
Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic news, courtesy of...
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act No. 42 of 2011.
The government has focused attention to sell canned fish at concessionary rates through Satosa outlets to meet the demand in the market. State Minister of Fisheries Kanchana Wijayasekara said that the current requirement of canned fish in the country is 250,000 cans. The government is taking every possible measure to strengthen the entrepreneurs and industrialists. That's economic news.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
The Met Department says several spells of showers will occur in the western, central and Sabragama provinces and in the Gaul and Matara districts. The wind speed will be 30 to 40 kilometers per hour in the western slope of the Central Hills, northern, north central and northwestern provinces and in the Hambantota and Trincomalee districts. The wind speed can increase up to 50 kilometers per hour at times in these areas.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
To conclude this bulletin of news, a recap of the headlines. Development projects worth over 284 billion rupees are being implemented in the country. The government says there is no change in the suspension of the import of vehicles. Compensation will be given to fishermen who were affected due to the burnt Express Pearl vessel. More than 2.3 million people have been vaccinated. NATO warns of military challenge posed by China. That concludes this afternoon's news broadcast.